Welcome back to my kitchen. Today we are diving into food history with a recipe that dates all the way back to 1700 to 1800. We'll be making a traditional plum cake that was recorded in the Almon Scrapbook, now preserved in the Nova Scotia Archives. What makes this recipe especially fascinating is that it uses Barm yeast. Now, if you're not familiar with Barm yeast, it is a byproduct collected from brewing beer, and it is frothy. Before commercial yeast was available, bakers relied on this natural ferment to make their bread and cakes rise. It was a staple in the 18th century kitchens and gave baked goods a distinct, rich flavor. So today we're not only baking a cake, we are bringing back a piece of culinary heritage from the Atlantic Maritime provinces, exactly as people would have enjoyed it more than 2 centuries ago. Let's get at it. 1.5 pounds of flour, which is about 4.5 to 5 cups. 9 eggs, and to avoid the shells going into my cake mixture, we are going to crack them over the bowl and then put the egg in. And the most important ingredient is barm yeast, and that's what I have here. It is actually the top scoop of actively fermenting ale. So I went to a local brewery and I had them scoop some of the top off of their active ferment, and that's what's in this bottle. So I've been feeding it sugar and beer to keep it nice and bubbly. I tried this once and I just used the yeast cap that was on top, and it was too dry and didn't work. So I'm going to give this a shake to mix all of the yeast up. And if you look really closely, you should be able to see little bubbles coming up of where the barm yeast is actively eating in there. We're going to give this a shake just to mix it all together. I want to make sure I get a good amount of yeast in there. So I want it all diluted well, because we want this puppy to work. All right, and that's 3/4 cup of barm yeast. And now we're gonna mix this up, and it's gonna sit and ferment overnight. I will see you tomorrow. Hey my friends, it's the following day, and as you can see, our mixture is starting to rise, and I've come down to set up to film for today. As seems to be my fate, I have yet realized that I made a terrible mistake in this recipe. I used 9 eggs. 9 eggs was for the full batch, not for the half batch that I made. So I've debated what to do. Worst case, we'll start this video over again, and I will make it a different week. But I think what I'm going to do today is I'm just going to add the extra ingredients, and we're going to let this continue to ferment and then make our cake. So I'm going to add the rest of the barm yeast. I'm going to give it a good shake up. I want all that yeast in the bottom in this cake. Woo! She's feisty. I was so proud too. I was like, oh, this is gonna work this time. This is the second time I've tried making this cake. The first time did not work so well. All right, I want all this goodness in there. There we go. I'm gonna mix this up before I put the flour in. You can see that this has gotten lots of air in it. Okay, now that it's loosened up a little bit, I'm gonna put another 1.5 pounds of flour in here, which is probably gonna make it, the way it was the first time I made it, way too dry. But let's see. All right, way drier. I'm having a hard time incorporating all of this. I wonder if I can get my hands in there. Do you think that's a good idea? Let's try that. I'm literally desperate at this point. Take my ring off. I did clean my hands before I started. but you do not want to cook with your rings on if you're going to get your hands into the food that you're cooking. All right, this is making it a little easier to incorporate the flour this way. So I'm going to cover this, and I will see you tomorrow, and we'll see if we can make this cake. All right. Bye. I am so pleased to announce that this version has finally worked. Let me just show you how this turned out. Look how much that has risen. This is exactly how I thought it would look. I am so excited to finally be making this cake properly. So the first thing we need to do now is cream some butter and sugar together. And I do have my modern machine here to do this, just because we don't have all day. So it is 1.5 pounds of butter. Just gonna pop it right in there. Probably could have done this part first. And by today's standards, 1.5 pounds of butter, this cake already cost me over $10. I think butter right now is around $8 or more. Depends on where you get it, but yeah, this cake is already expensive. Naturally, at that time, you probably would have churned your own butter. 3.5 cups of sugar. I will start with a 1/2 cup. And now we're just gonna mix this up until the butter and sugar are nice and fluffy. I'm gonna start this on a low setting. Okay, I think this looks pretty frothy, I guess. The butter has definitely gotten lighter and the sugar is completely incorporated. Now we're just gonna ditch this machine. So I'm gonna do what I did on the first cake, and I'm gonna mix the rest of the ingredients in here before I incorporate it into my risen flour egg Barm yeast mixture. So I'm gonna add 1 cup of port, or any fortified wine, 1/4 cup of rose water. Now make sure you get the kind that you can eat, because there's a rose water that goes on your face. This is food grade rose water, and that's what you want. And next I'm gonna add my spices. 3 teaspoons of mace, 2.5 teaspoons of ground cloves, and 3 teaspoons of cinnamon. And we're just gonna dump that all in here. Now I thought I'd show you what the mace looks like. I buy it whole and ground it in my little spice grinder. So this is how I buy it. You can see it is the husk of the nut that the nutmeg comes in. So you have a nut. Inside that nut is like this lining, which is called mace, and then the nut itself is the nutmeg. It smells delicious. It's a little bit more perfumier, I think, in some ways than the nutmeg. So we're just gonna put that all in here, and I'm gonna give this a mix before I add the raisins and currants. If you recall last time, my butter didn't completely mix in right. So if you want to see that, you can watch the plum cake #1. And it turned out delicious though, but this time I want to make sure I've got everything incorporated nicely. And again, at this stage, there's no instructions. And now we're gonna add our currants. So I have a confession, I did not have enough currants for this recipe because we doubled it. We're making a full batch. So I am substituting half with raisins, which is absolutely fine. Currants and raisins are still in the same plum family. But this is a great opportunity to show you the difference. So there's my currant, and here's my raisin. And you can see how much bigger the raisin is. And the currant is just a little bit more dry and concentrated. And that's why it's a little bit darker in color. It's absolutely fine to substitute currants and raisins. And this time I think I'm gonna pour these into the little bit of mace there, into the butter mixture, butter spice mixture. And now just give this a stir. This is our Barm yeast flour and egg mixture, and I'm just gonna combine the two. Ooh, it's heavy. I think we need a bigger spoon for this job. Oh my, it looks like bread. I hope it incorporates okay. It feels like it's not going to. I'm glad I got the bigger spoon out. All right, well, we're just going to continue to work this until it's incorporated. It's a labor of love. This was definitely a special cake. There was a special event to go through this much effort. With all the other chores you had to do, there's no way that anybody is doing this as a daily cake. You loved whoever you made this for. Honestly, what do you guys think? I think that looks pretty good. Let's get this stuff into some pans to bake. All right, we're gonna start with a 9x13 pan and fill this a bit. This time I'm not gonna take it to the top because there is a possibility that this yeast is going to rise in the oven. Oof, oh, this is gross. Okay. It's like you need help to do this, I think. Oh my goodness. And we're just gonna use the spoon to push it around and fill out the pan. Okay, there's our 9x13, 8-inch round. I found it interesting that this one did not have the candied fruit in it, and I'm slightly disappointed by that. We are going to follow the baking instructions from a 1796 recipe in the American Cookery. It is a North American and East Coast cookbook, so I'm going to assume that these were very similar instructions as would have been used at this time. We're going to cook these at 375 degrees for 20 minutes and then at 350 degrees for 20 minutes. And then we're going to turn the oven off and let it sit 15 to 20 minutes more in that residual heat to finish cooking. And hopefully that will make it cook all the way through without cooking those edges too much. So that said, let's go get this in the oven. I will meet you back here in a bit. Look how good these turned out. They look fantastic. Better than I had hoped for, really. I think it's time that we try one. Maybe this will be the easiest one to do because I've got it on a spring form. My initial take on this is that it cooked so much better this time. There isn't that hard crust around the edge. It looks beautiful. I wish I had done this the first time I cooked it. Let's give this a cut and see what we've got. It's still really heavy. Probably should have done this on the cutting board. All right, let's take a look. It's still pretty warm. I probably should have let it cool a little bit longer, but that looks beautiful on the inside. Granted, it does have some dough consistency to it, and it doesn't have the cake look that we normally have. It smells delicious. It's a little bit oily feeling. Yeah, you can see it on my fingers, and that's because I think that butter mixture didn't really incorporate quite as well as it would have if we had put it in with the flour and Barm yeast from the start. But that's okay. The scent is delicious. I will say I'm kind of missing that extra citrus scent. Time to try. It's a little squishy. Let's do it. It's a little bit of a chewy cake. The texture is sort of doughy, but not. So I don't know how to explain it to you other than to say it's sort of doughy, but not. The flavor's great. The currants are delicious. The spices are coming through. If I had to pick between this cake and what I think was the earlier version of the cake, the Plum Cake #1, that you can watch that video here, I think I would choose Plum Cake #1, and I would bake it the way I baked this one. So with the 20 minutes at 375, 20 minutes at 350, 20 minutes to rest in the oven, and then bring it out to cool. That would have made that cake absolutely perfect. This is good. It's obviously a celebration cake because the ingredients were so expensive. They're still expensive. I don't think that the reward is worth the work that it took for this. It was definitely labor intensive. Mixing all those ingredients after the flour, egg, Barm yeast mixture fermented was so much work. And I just don't think it gave the same quality of recipe. It just goes to show how throughout time recipes can be modified and changed with current ways of thinking. Like at this time, this was adapted to use Barm yeast, and ultimately it's not always better. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. If you're interested in more vintage recipes, I made this in conjunction with UMB, and you can find their link right here. Go check it out. They've got a bunch of interesting information about recipes from 1750 to 1800, and I think you'll really enjoy the experience. Thank you for coming today. Like, follow, subscribe. Email me here if you've got some recipes, particularly if they are from the 1700s to 1800s. I would love to have them. Thank you. Bye.